Hello friends, welcome to Dungeons & Dragonfly, where I adapt various characters for use in D&D. I'm Dragonfly9078, and today I'll be building Hank Hill of Strickland Propane. So first a bit of background. Hank Hill is a middle-aged propane and propane accessories salesman from Arlen, Texas. He lives in the suburbs with his wife Peggy, their son Bobby, and their niece Luann. Hank is a fairly stereotypical Texas man. He likes medium rare steak and the Dallas Cowboys. The type of man who likes you if you've got a firm handshake and hates calling repairmen, because it means there was something wrong that he couldn't fix with his own two hands. He loves his lawn, his dog, his family, and most of all, he loves America. Overall, Hank is the most reliable man around, and everyone knows it. If there's something that needs to get done, Hank Hill is the man to call to get it done and get it done right. That said, he's very firmly entrenched in his idea of traditional values, and sometimes struggles to understand people and ideas who fall outside of those values, which unfortunately often includes his son. So what do we want from this build? Well, Hank is a big fan of football, even serving as the star running back of his high school football team. He's not quite in the shape he used to be in, but he's still solidly built and surprisingly athletic for his age. He's also quite the outdoorsman, having spent years in a Boy Scout-esque organization called the Order of the Straight Arrow. He's a decent marksman and tracker, and as a result is a pretty good hunter, believing that killing a deer is a rite of passage for a young man. And finally, he has a real passion for do-it-yourself projects. He's handy with tools, and can do anything from fixing up his truck to building coffins for himself and his wife. Looking over at ability scores, I'll be using the standard point array. We'll be using several classes, so if you roll for stats, keep an eye on your strength, dexterity, intelligence, and wisdom. We'll start off with a 15 in strength. Hank is a former athlete, and he hasn't gotten too much weaker with age. He has gotten a little bit slower though, so dexterity is going to be a 10. With a 14 in constitution, football players need to be able to take a hit, then our 13 will go into intelligence. Hank is definitely not dumb, and he often serves as the voice of reason and common sense among his friends, so wisdom will be 12. And finally, we'll dump charisma, because while Hank is a great salesman and people often like him, a lot of that is based on either his reputation, his work ethic, or his knowledge, not so much on his force of personality. Hank is a human, and a fairly standard one at that, so we'll get +1 to all of our stats. We'll go with the Hillsfar merchant background to get started at Strickland Propane, setting us up with proficiency with insight and persuasion, as well as with water vehicles. We would normally also get proficiency with land vehicles here, but we're going to get that later on from one of our classes, so switch that out for carpenter's tools. We'll start off as a ranger, but we'll be using an Unearthed Arcana variant that doesn't get any spells. It's a pretty interesting variant, you should check it out if you haven't. This build has a lot of moving parts, so I'll be doing something a little different and going level by level. First level rangers get 3 skills from the ranger list. Take animal handling to train our dog, athletics to relive our high school glory days, and survival to become a better hunter. We can also become a better hunter by picking a type of creature to be our favored enemy. Mundane deer, fish, and birds all fall under the beast category, so go with that. We get +2 damage to beasts, and advantage on survival checks made to track beasts, and intelligence checks made to recall information about them. Thanks to his time in the Straight Arrow, Hank is a natural explorer, letting us ignore difficult terrain, and giving us advantage on initiative rolls and attack rolls against creatures that haven't acted yet during the first round of combat. We also get some benefits outside of combat. Our whole group ignores difficult terrain and can't get lost. We can find more food when foraging and stay alert to danger even while foraging. We can learn the number and size of creatures we track, as well as how recently they passed through the area. And if we're on our own, we can move stealthily and still move at our normal speed. Second level rangers get a fighting style. As a former running back, we need to be good at throwing things. The thrown weapon fighting style won't make us more accurate, but it'll let us throw quicker and harder, giving us +2 to the damage of our thrown weapons, and letting us draw the weapon as part of our attack. Normally second level rangers would get spells as well, but since we're a spell-less ranger, we get maneuvers instead. We have a pool of superiority dice, which are 4d8s that we can use to fuel our maneuvers, and that refill on a short rest. We'll only be getting 2 maneuvers, and Hank does more talking than fighting, so take Commanding Presence to add a superiority die to an Intimidation, Performance, or Persuasion check, and Tactical Assessment to add one to an Investigation, Insight, or History check. At 3rd level we get to pick our Ranger archetype, and Beastmaster is the way to go for a boy and his dog. For our animal companion, we'll use the Mastiff stats for Hank's beloved dog Ladybird. She acts on her own initiative during combat, but she'll follow our orders unless we're incapacitated. Rangers' companions get to be better than their fellow animals. Ladybird uses our proficiency bonus instead of her own, adds our proficiency to her AC and damage, and gets 2 skill proficiencies and proficiency with all saving throws. Mastiffs naturally have perception, so give her survival to be a hunting dog, and intimidation to scare off the repairmen. She can also travel stealthily with us using Natural Explorer, and gets the same benefits as us from Favored Enemy. 3rd level rangers also get Primeval Awareness. We can tell an animal's mood and condition with a glance, and can communicate simple ideas with them using gestures and sounds. I imagine we'd mostly use this to communicate with Ladybird, but you never know what might come up. We can also flex our outdoorsman skills by concentrating for a minute to sense whether there are any beasts within 5 miles of us. For each group of beasts in range, we learn how many there are and the general area that they're in. We're not quite done with 3rd level yet because a big aspect of the Boy Scouts is first aid, and spell-less rangers learn how to make poultices. With an hour of work, we can gather enough herbs and such to make a number of poultices equal to our wisdom modifier. Then we can spend a minute applying the poultice to a humanoid to heal it 1d6 for every 2 of our ranger levels. There's no limit to the number we can make in a day, but we can only carry around a number of them equal to our wisdom modifier. We are the only one who can apply them, and they're wasted if not used within 24 hours. The ability description says they only work on humanoids, but if your DM doesn't let you use them to heal your dog, then honestly, aren't they the real monster? Our last level of ranger comes with our first ability score improvement. Like I said before, we need our dexterity to be at least 13 to multi-class, so bump that up by 2. And since we're a Beastmaster, Ladybird gets an improvement as well. Bump her constitution up to 14 to give her a little bit more health. Now let's switch over to Artificer to satisfy our urge to DIY. Multiclassing into Artificer gives us proficiency with Thieves' Tools and Tinker's Tools, and makes us a magical tinkerer. As an action, we can touch a tiny non-magical object to make it slightly magical, making it glow, record a message, display an image, or emit a smell or non-verbal sound. We also get spells at this level because I haven't been able to find a spell-less Artificer, but I'll save those for the spellcasting section. 2nd level Artificers learn to infuse items with magic. We can borrow some night vision goggles and walkie-talkies from Dale with goggles of night and sending stones. A pole of angling is a 10-foot pole that transforms into a fishing rod and vice versa. And a chest of preserving is a cooler to keep the fish in. We can only make 2 infusions at a time, but they last until we try to make more. At 3rd level, we can take a trip to the Megalomart to pick up the right tool for the job, letting us spend an hour to create a non-magical set of artisan's tools. We must just be renting them though, because they only last until we make another set. For our Artificer specialty, we're going to go with Battlesmith to get proficiency with Smith's tools, and let us use our intelligence instead of our strength or dexterity for the attack and damage rolls of our magic weapons. We have a couple of spells constantly prepared. Shield lets us use our reaction to get +5 to our AC for the turn, and Heroism makes a creature we touch immune to fear for a minute with our concentration, and gives it temporary HP equal to our casting modifier at the start of each of its turns. Keep in mind, temporary HP doesn't stack, so it just refreshes every turn. The main draw of Battlesmiths, though, is the Steel Defender, a construct that we can direct in combat with our bonus action, and heal with the Mending cantrip. I'm envisioning this as Hank's lawnmower. Now, since it's only medium, it can't technically be a mount, since we are also medium, but lawnmowers aren't exactly what I would call combat-optimized mounts anyway, so I could see cutting its speed in half or some other similar drawback. 4th level gets us another ability score improvement, but our ability scores are about as high as we need them to be, so take the skilled feat instead for proficiency with history to remember the Alamo, intimidation to threaten to kick someone's ass, and the guitar so we can play good old Betsy. 5th level Battlesmiths get extra attack, letting us make 2 attacks with the attack action instead of 1, and since we can cast 2nd level spells now, we get more specialty spells. Branding Smite lets us deal an extra 2d8 radiant damage the first time we hit a creature in the next minute, and also makes the creature glow, preventing it from becoming invisible. And Warding Bond links us and another creature for up to an hour. While we stay within 60 feet of the creature, it gets +1 to its AC and saving throws, and resistance to all damage, though when it does take damage, we take the same amount. You can use this boost on Ladybird to make her a little bit tankier, except don't, because why is Ladybird in combat, you monster? 6th level Artificers get Tool Expertise, doubling our proficiency bonus for checks we make with tools we're proficient with, as well as learning 2 more infusions. The Tankard of Sobriety will let us chug down Alamo beers with no ill effects, and the Voting Kit is an extra dimensional space that we can hide a set of tools in and use to cast Charm Person once per day. It's kind of a weird item from Acquisitions Incorporated, and doesn't really seem to have much to do with voting, but I would bet that Hank would take one look at the list of available infusions and immediately take the Voting Kit so he could do his civic duty, only to be confused later on when he finds out what it actually does. I'm sure that would make him pretty mad, so let's jump over to Barbarian to get some Rage. We can enter our Rage as a bonus action, and it lasts for up to a minute. While we're raging, we get resistance to slashing, bludgeoning, and piercing damage, advantage on strength checks and saves, and deal an extra 2 damage with strength-based melee weapons. We also get Unarmored Defense, making our AC 10 plus our Dexterity plus our Constitution. 2nd level Barbarians get Reckless Attack, giving us advantage on our strength-based melee attacks, but giving other creatures advantage to hit us in return, as well as Danger Sense for advantage on dexterity saves against effects we can see, like spells and traps. At 3rd level, we'll use Primal Knowledge to get proficiency with nature, and start our way down the path of the Berserker. When we rage, we can choose to enter a Frenzy. If we do, we can make a melee attack as a bonus action on each of our turns. But Hank isn't the spring chicken he used to be, so after our frenzy ends, we get a level of exhaustion. We'll finish off our Barbarian levels by harkening back to our football days with the Charger feat. When we dash on our turn, we can use our bonus action to make a melee attack or try to shove a creature. If we build up speed by moving in a straight line for at least 10 feet before making the attack or shove, we either deal an extra 5 damage or push the creature up to 10 feet away from us. Hank holds several records at his high school for rushing, so this seems fitting. He's also a religious man, so let's finish up with some Cleric levels. 1st level Clerics pick a domain, and the city domain is good for more modern settings. We learn how to shoot a gun and drive a truck, essential skills for any Texan, and learn the on-off cantrip to turn things on or off from a distance. We also get even more spells that are always prepared. Comprehend Languages lets us understand any spoken or written language for an hour, though it doesn't let us speak or write it, and Remote Access lets us use an electronic device within 120 feet, as though it were in our hand, like a voice command. We also get Heart of the City. A number of times per day equal to our Wisdom modifier, we can get advantage on a Persuasion, Deception, or Intimidation check if we're in a city. When we do, we also count as proficient with that skill if we aren't already. We do have Persuasion and Intimidation already, but this should help if we really need to deceive someone for some reason. 2nd level Clerics get to channel their divinity once per rest. Arlen doesn't have many zombies, but if we do run into any, we can turn undead to force any undead within 30 feet to make a Wisdom save, or be forced to run away from us for a minute, or until they take damage, whichever comes first. We can also invoke the Spirits of the City to make utilities within 30 feet of us either malfunction or work perfectly for a minute. Any hostile creatures in the area have to make a Charisma save or be knocked prone or restrained by water shooting out of a fire hydrant, a sudden pothole opening up, entangling wires, that sort of thing. I'd flavor this as Hank looking over the utilities and either saying that, yep, they're up to code, or warning that they aren't and that something could go wrong before that thing immediately goes wrong in true comedic fashion. At 3rd level, we pick up 2nd level Cleric spells and 2 more Domain spells. Find Vehicle will let us summon our trusty Ford pickup truck for up to 8 hours, as well as doubling our proficiency bonus to checks made to drive it. And Heat Metal makes a metal object within 60 feet glow red hot for up to a minute with concentration, dealing 2d8 fire damage to any creature touching it, and dealing that damage again on later turns using our bonus action. Any creature that takes the damage has to make a Constitution save to drop the object, and if they fail, they have disadvantage on attacks and ability checks until our next turn. Next, we'll get our last ability score improvement, and therefore our last feat. We're still not as good a salesman as I'd like, so go with the Diplomat feat to get rid of our penalty to Charisma, and pick up Expertise and Persuasion. It also makes us a Master Negotiator, letting us charm any creature that we have at least a minute-long conversation with, if our Persuasion check beats their Insight check. They remain charmed for as long as we're within 60 feet of them, and for a minute afterward, perfect for locking in those sales. 5th level Clerics get 3rd level spells. Lightning Bolt forces a dexterity save on creatures in a 100-foot line, dealing 8d6 lightning damage on a fail, and half as much on a success. And Protection from Ballistics is a nice bulletproof vest that we can shrug on, giving us or a creature we touch resistance to non-magical ballistic damage for up to 10 minutes with concentration. We're also better at dealing with the undead horde that is apparently plaguing Arlen, as any undead of CR 1/2 or lower who fails their save against our turn undead is just immediately destroyed. Our capstone ability is Block Watch from the 6th level of the City domain. While we're in a city, we have expertise in both Insight and Perception, making us very hard to sneak up on or trick. We can also use our Channel Divinity in additional time per rest. Looking over at spellcasting, I'm only counting the Artificer and Cleric levels since we use the Spell-less Ranger, so we're effectively a 9th level caster. We get 2 Artificer cantrips and 4 from Cleric. For Artificer, use Guidance to give out a little fatherly advice, and Mending to fix up our lawnmower when it's damaged. For Cleric, we'll use Light to get a headlamp or flashlight since we can't see in the dark, Resistance for some fatherly encouragement to help with saving throws, Spare the Dying for some emergency first aid, and Sacred Flame for a holy fire fueled by God's own ignition agent.
Sweet Lady Propane.
That deals up to 4d8 radiant damage to a creature that fails their dexterity save. Now, both Artificers and Clerics prepare their spells from their class's entire lists, so I'll just highlight a couple of spells that work for Hank. Our Straight Arrow training can account for Guiding Hand and Purify Food and Drink. Guiding Hand points the direction to a city or landmark. We can do the same with a map and compass. and Purify Food and Drink eliminates poisons and impurities from food and drink, which Hank would have learned how to do for camping. Calm Emotions can be used to calm down Bill or Dale so they don't get themselves killed, and Pyrotechnics can make either fireworks or thick smoke from a source of fire. Fireworks are legal in the state of Texas, and Hank knows his way around a campfire, so either one shouldn't be too difficult for him. We'll also pick up Continual Flame for our only other use of propane, creating a long-lasting fire the size of a torch, much more reliable than anything charcoal could produce. And Sending is basically just a cell phone, letting us contact any creature we know, regardless of distance, though the message we send is limited to 25 words. And finally, with Motivational Speech, we can inspire our Strickland crew or Bobby's football team, giving 5 creatures within 60 feet 5 temporary HP, and advantage on Wisdom saves for up to an hour. If an affected creature is hit by an attack, they get advantage on their next attack roll, though the spell ends once they lose all of the temporary HP. Now that the build is complete, the question becomes, how good is it? Well, you have proficiency with a bunch of tools and a ton of skills, with multiple ways to get advantage or bonuses to many of them, as well as 3 expertises while in a city, so you're ready for almost any situation. You're especially good at defusing situations, with expertise in Insight and Persuasion, access to Calm Emotions, and the ability to charm people non-magically just by talking to them. And finally, you're fantastic at supporting the team out of combat, with your Ranger and Artificer abilities providing equipment, healing, and bonuses to overland travel. On the other hand, you're not especially good in combat, with only 13 AC with Unarmored Defense, and your best attacking option being Sacred Flame. You also have pretty low ability scores across the board, meaning you have low save DCs for your spells, and you aren't especially good at making saves yourself. And finally, your companions are nice to have, but they don't really do all that much for you. The Beastmaster ability isn't clear on if your animal companion gets stronger when you multiclass, so I'm erring on the side of caution and saying she doesn't, meaning Ladybird has about 13 HP and deals 11 damage with her bite. Not exactly high tier damage. The Lawnmower is a little better, but its HP is dependent on your Artificer levels, meaning it maxes out at about 34. But Hank isn't really a fighter. Sure, he gets mad and throws out a kick every now and then, but he'd much rather settle disagreements peacefully and in accordance with the law. Have a good time hunting, hiking, and tinkering, but when it comes to getting in a fight, maybe call the police. Or Dale, I mean, that guy's crazy.
Damn it, Dale.
I hope you enjoyed the build. If you have any feedback or suggestions for characters you'd like to see me build, please leave them in the comments below. Thank you for watching, friends. I will see y'all later.